everyone, it's been a minute since I've been back on here, but that's because I have been knee-deep in reading the incredibly popular booktok sensation, Icebreaker. I'm sure if you've been on booktok for a hot minute, you've seen this cover in places before. It is all over the bookstores, it is all over the internet. Something about this book just took booktok by storm. It has put hockey romance as one of the biggest selling romance genres of the year. And it's caused up quite a bit of controversy given its very cartoonish, almost teen-esque cover, because this book is not meant for young adults. This book is spicy, 18 and older content for sure, but we're going to do a deep dive into this. What made this book so darn popular? What actually happens in the story? Let me give you a breakdown of what actually happens in this book. For those of you who've never heard before, Icebreaker is the debut novel by Hannah Grace. This is the first in her Maple Hills series, and to date she's put out 3 of them, the second being Wildfire, and the third just came out, and that is Daydream. All 3 of the main male characters in the series are on a hockey team, and they all know each other, they all work together on the same team, and each book is one of their stories. Icebreaker starts off with figure skater Anastasia Stas Allen, and you're going to see a lot of A names. I think Hannah needs to pick a couple more from the alphabet, because we've got Anastasia, we've got Aaron Carlisle, and we've got Coach Aubrey Brady, who are all introduced in the first chapter. So you've got 3 A names that you're kind of working with, but most people call Anastasia by Stas, her nickname. She and Aaron are pair skaters, so they both figure skate together, and their goal is to get into the next Olympics. They are working so hard for nationals, and that is where this book takes off. Anastasia is struggling with some of the stunts, and Aaron is not exactly the most supportive partner. And when you start off with a book like this, you automatically think, okay, well, Aaron's going to be the love interest. It's not that way at all between them. They come off as this like almost familial brother-sister type friendship, and between the 2 of them, they're also friends with Lola. Lola, Aaron, and Stas all live together in the same building. Aaron's dad is incredibly rich, so Stas actually lives with Aaron, her teammate, and Lola lives with them as well, so it's the 3 of them all in this shared little apartment. Well, it's not really little, it's actually this really luxurious high-rise with like a fancy door person. It is nice where they're living. So when the book opens up, we have Aaron and we have Stas that are actually in a training session together, and that's kind of where we get some of this background information from. We know that they've been skating together for about 3 years, they're both juniors, and one of the big controversies in this book is Stas's weight. So if you have an eating disorder, this book could be very triggering. They talk about how Stas gained 5 pounds and how Aaron's struggling to lift her, and she's on a very, very strict diet that Aaron actually created for her. Stas is also very type A. From what she eats to every moment of her day is planned out. She lives and dies by her planner. She's very type A, gotta love her for that. But she's a little too strict with her diet, a little too strict with her regimen. She doesn't really know how to lighten up. Unless she's hooking up with her friend with benefits. On the basketball team, we have Ryan Rothwell, Ryan's a sweetie. Like, they know very much that there's no romance there. They know that it is just a physical friendship, but there is an actual underlying friendship there as well. And Ryan is very against Stas's eating habits. He brings her sugary snacks, he brings her junk food, and Aaron absolutely can't stand that, and Stas just tried to stay away from all that, but Ryan's a sweetheart. He does bring her sweets, he brings her junk food that he knows she likes. Not in the I'm trying to sabotage you and fatten you up kind of way, but more of the I want you to be able to relax and actually enjoy food and enjoy yourself a little bit kind of way, so we gotta love him for that. So now that we've got the skating team, plus 2, in there, let's move on to Nathan Hawkins, Nate, who is the epitome of a golden retriever. We love Nate. Nate is amazing, and that kind of jumps off the page, maybe not right away. Because in chapter 2, when this starts off, Nate is just waking up in bed with another girl who at first he doesn't recognize, and then realizes, no, that was actually a drunk night with somebody he kind of hates. And to make matters just a little bit worse, when we start off with Nate, he's not sure if the girl that he just slept with is still dating one of the other guys on the hockey team. He thinks they're broken up, but he's not positive, which I feel like if you're going to hook up with somebody, bro code should kind of matter there. So Nate doesn't start off in the best light, but he definitely redeems himself quickly. Nate lives with his 3 teammates. So one of them is Robbie, and Robbie's actually disabled. He had a really bad skiing accident and he is in a wheelchair. So he's actually the assistant coach for the team. We also live with JJ, who you'll discover that JJ is an absolute sweetheart in this book. Very sweet guy. And then we also have Henry Turner. Henry is actually the main character for the 3rd book in the series, Daydream. And he's the only junior that's living with them. The other guys are seniors. So poor Henry's going to be all alone next year. But the banter between the hockey players had me cracking up throughout the entire book. I feel like Hannah Grace writes such good banter, even through text. These guys are hilarious. Like, I can't remember the last time I read a romance where I was actually laughing out loud throughout the book. This absolutely did that. So Nate is actually drafted for a hockey team, an NHL team up in Vancouver. He will be playing hockey professionally, and that has always been his goal. But Ian Hawkins, who we discover is kind of a terrible father, and kind of is a pretty loose word, but he's very, very rich and pushed for all these hockey lessons for Nate growing up, and Nate is now going to be in the NHL, but surprisingly his dad doesn't want him to be in the NHL. After all of that time, his dad actually wants him to take over the family business, which is owning a ski lodge. So Nate is more determined to play hockey than to take over his grumpy dad's business. Make things a little bit trickier too on top of that, Nate's dad actually owns the building where the guys live. And it turns out that they converted the garage into a sort of apartment complex for Robbie that would be wheelchair friendly. But basically they're all under Mr. Hawkins' thumb. So like many frat bros, they are all going to be throwing a party very soon to start off the year when Coach calls them in. Coach Faulkner, who is like the epitome of a girl dad. We absolutely love Coach Faulkner. He's very much a family man. He calls the team in because it turns out that somebody played a prank that didn't go so well. So one of the generators in one of the 2 ice hockey rinks on campus is completely destroyed. So what do you know? Now the hockey team has to learn how to practice alongside the ice skating teams, the figure skating teams. So now they are sharing a rink. And this is where the meet cute happens. The sporting director gets all of the teams together and basically reprimands every single team on behaving themselves this year. Lets the figure skating team know that unfortunately the hockey team is now going to be sharing the rink, which Stas is not happy about. She's trying so hard to get into the Olympics with Aaron, and now her schedule, which is very strict, remember she loves her planner, is now going to be completely messed up because she has to accommodate for this hockey team. Now the director, as he's explaining this, is an absolute dick, like of the highest order. So the year before, another figure skater actually got pregnant by somebody on the hockey team, and the director directly calls out the baby daddy and basically reminds all the students that they need to be on their best behavior, no delinquent behavior, because look what happened last year when somebody knocked up another student and now that student had to drop out of school, lose their scholarship to take care of the baby. Which actually doesn't quite happen. They stayed in school, but she had to drop off the team. So basically the entire team is helping to raise this kid while both parents are in their last year of college. So the director takes it just a little too far. So once the director calls the meeting, which I'm sorry, how can some fantasy college have 2 ice skating rinks? But anywho, basically after the director makes the announcement that all of the ice teams, winter teams, are going to have to work together with just one rink, Nate then comes over to Stas and kind of wants to apologize for putting her in that position, but she comes off as so rude, so defensive, so unlikable. She just does not want to hear any of this. She is so pissed off that she has to share her rink with the hockey team now that she basically completely ignores him. But of course that doesn't stop Golden Retriever Nate. Now, Nate just wants to be nice. He thinks that Stas is actually dating Aaron when all this starts, so he's not in there trying to slide into her DMs. No, he's actually just being thoughtful. He wants to be a good coach. He's the coach of the hockey team. He wants to be a good leader. Or not coach. He's the captain of the hockey team. There's a difference. You could tell I don't watch a lot of hockey. But he's the captain. He wants to set a good example for his team, and he's trying to make amends here and make the best of a really bad situation. So as all this is going down, Nate's pretty observant, and he knows that Russ Callahan on the team is looking a little sus as the director is talking about this entire debacle with the ice skating rinks. So Nate pulls Russ aside and is like, okay, I know you know something happened, so tell me what's going on. So Russ admits that he was hooking up with somebody who turns out had a boyfriend, and that boyfriend was over at UCLA, not that far away. So the people from UCLA came over and sabotaged their rink. So once he talks to Stas, he invited her to the big frat-ish party that the hockey team's throwing. So once they're there, Stas actually needs to use the bathroom. So Nate lets her use the private one in his bedroom, takes her up there, and then once she's done doing her business, they just chit-chat. It's really light, it's really fluffy, and she's in very tall heels. So as she's walking down the steps, he's holding her hand to sort of guide her back downstairs when they run smack into Aaron. Remember, he thinks Aaron's her boyfriend. So Nate and Aaron kind of have this little like macho measuring up each other's you-know-what moment, and Stas isn't loving that. But then Aaron takes it just a little step too far and points out that not only is she sleeping with Ryan, but apparently now she's got a thing going on with Nate since she just came out of his bedroom, and he's basically slut-shaming his own skating partner. Which professionally is a terrible move, and personally just shows how much of a dick Aaron really is. So Stas is like, okay, I'm fed up with this conversation, I'm gonna leave. So she runs into Ryan, who's flirting with Olivia Liv Abbott, and Liv is kind of rivals with Lola. Lola's in the theater and so is Liv, and Liv keeps getting all the big parts, and it's kind of driving Lola insane that she keeps missing the big parts because Liv is just so good. And Liv and Ryan are having a little flirty moment, and this is how you know Stas has no romantic interest in him. There's no jealousy at all. She's like, go Ryan, go get it, you go get her, that's amazing for you. So Stas asks Liv, like, hey, have you seen Lola at the party anywhere? And Lola apparently went to Robbie's room. So now Robbie and Lola have their own little thing. So now you've got Stas's roommate who's hooking up with Nate's roommate, and Stas teaches kids hockey on Saturdays. So who ends up showing up while she's teaching is Ryan, because Ryan actually wants a little bit of help and a little bit of advice about what to do about this. So he brings her some junk food for lunch, which she enjoys guiltily because she does have a pretty bad eating disorder, but she encourages Ryan to ask Liv out. So that is the start of Ryan and Liv's little relationship. So right at the start of the year, they're throwing yet another party. They're throwing a surprise party for Robbie because it's his birthday. And of course, Nate, being such a good friend, wants to make sure that Robbie's new girlfriend slash crush, Lola, shows up. So he gets Stas involved to make sure that Lola ends up coming to the party, which of course means that Stas is invited. So as this is going on, Aaron's overhearing it, and he's trying to get Nate to basically stop flirting with Stas. And you just see that Aaron is so incredibly nasty for no reason. You could tell he's jealous, but they've also both made it abundantly clear that there's nothing romantic going on between them. So what's with the jealousy here? So while they're planning the party, the director of sports in the schools kind of forces the figure skating and the ice skating teams to get together with the hockey team and basically do a little speed dating-esque kind of thing. Not so much to date, but just so that way they get to know each other and maybe not hate each other since they're going to have to share a rink for the next few months. So Stas goes around to all of the guys on the team, meets them, talks with them, quick little 5-minute chat, and some of them are just so adorable. Like, we absolutely love them. Henry, like, golden retriever again, just so incredibly sweet. He is the textbook definition of a cinnamon roll boyfriend, Henry. I have not read Daydream yet. I'm so excited to get to that because I'm so glad that he's going to be in this. So last in the speed dating round is Stas and Nate. So he apologizes for the way things have gone. She says that she accepts his apology, but basically he's on probation with her, so he needs to behave himself if he wants to be on her good side. From there, they have Robbie's like Vegas casino black tie themed party. Stas makes sure that Lola shows up looking gorgeous, of course, because that's what girls do. So Nate and Stas start flirting again, and of course, again, she needs to use the bathroom, but the line for the regular one is really, really long. So Nate does offer to let her use his private bathroom again. They both go upstairs. She does her business and then sees him outside. So they start flirting in his bedroom, and that leads to our very first spicy scene, you guys. Now, we love a book where they make consent explicit. He goes almost like a little too far with it sometimes. Like, are you sure? No, are you sure? Are you sure? But consent, even like extra bit of consent, is better than vague. So we'll take it. So the two of them are alone in Nate's bedroom. Things get hot, things get heavy. He ends up on his knees. She ends up screaming his name practically. I'm just trying to be vague for YouTube here, you guys. And yeah, she panics after she finishes and basically bolts out of the room, runs away, leaves the party. She is a mess afterwards. So jump forward, Stas is in bed with Ryan again. But it turns out that they weren't hooking up, they were just cuddling in bed. Like, Ryan is now exclusively seeing Liv, but the two of them are cuddled up on Ryan's bed. Anywho. No, so they're actually on Stas's bed. But Lola comes in with a couple of boxes, and they open it up, and it turns out that it's the team's hockey jerseys. Like, they actually sent them custom-made college hockey jerseys for them to wear to the games. So Stas is still a little bit annoyed, probably more at herself than anything else. She just doesn't want to admit to it. But she's basically blaming Robbie for taking Lola away from her at his own party, leaving her alone with Nate. Stas is really annoying. She has no accountability at the start of this, so it takes a little while before you actually start to warm up to her. But she's like the epitome of the grumpy in a grumpy sunshine. Almost to the point that it's too annoying. It was a little tough to get used to because her voice, like, in your head, just sometimes can be so irritating. So at this point, Stas is basically avoiding Nate because she is too afraid to confront him after what happened at the party. And this is where Nate also mentions that Robbie had Lola accidentally meet his parents. And I swear, Robbie and Lola are the ones that have the better love story in this. Like, the funny thing is, she was just in one of Robbie's t-shirts and a pair of panties when his parents walk into the house. Oh boy, but they actually loved her. Like, she was obviously incredibly embarrassed, but his parents absolutely adore Lola. The two of them together, like, their banter, their story, absolutely love it. Amazing. I think if anything, they are the ones that deserve the book, but anywho. He ends up going to the hockey rink where he knows that Stas and Aaron are practicing, and while he's there, she ends up getting hurt, and he panics, like he rushes in to help her. She ends up hitting her head and it's a head injury, and while Nate's trying to treat her, she's panicking because she has a competition tomorrow. They both do. So she's worried that she's going to hurt herself even more, that she's not going to be able to basically skate tomorrow, and Aaron comes in and interrupts and is like, yeah, I'm taking her to the hospital, this isn't good. As he ends up being alright, they go home, and then the next day is the competition. They don't do great, but at least they pass, and they have one more competition to make it through before they get to nationals. And when their Coach Brady, asks Stas why she hasn't been to any sort of international, like, competitions before, this is where we learn that Stas used to partner with an old boyfriend of hers, and they broke up, and it just devastated her too much, and it did not go well for her when they broke things up. Stas is kind of concerned that she's not really going to be up to par with a lot of the other skaters, because you really do have to practice and learn when you're younger in figure skating. And Coach Brady's basically berating her for not doing more when she was younger, because if she'd done more when she was younger, then she would be better. And of course, this is where Aaron loves to pipe up and remind Stas that she's also kind of heavy, even though she's actually not. He's just really, really weak. But this is where he points out that Stas really does need to watch her weight a little bit more to make it easier for him to lift her. Which, like, shut up, Aaron. Just shut up. So when they get home, Lola was at the hockey game and says, look, the hockey team's going out for drinks, so how about we go out for drinks with them? So they go out with the hockey team looking hot as hell. Henry is surprisingly a ladies' man. Like, Stas is not expecting it, but little puppy Henry is flirting with a couple of women there. So even though they're underage, they knew somebody who was able to get them into the club, and Miss Stas and Nate end up flirting after a couple of drinks. So of course, they're at a club. Stas and Lola go to dance. They dance around for a little while, and then they come back, have a couple drinks, and then Nate asks Stas to go dance with them, which she agrees to. And it is very steamy, practically grinding on each other. Absolutely love the tension between the two of them. So they decide to hop in a car home into an Uber. And this spicy scene, let me tell you, I do not remember a lot of particular spicy scenes, but this one just lives rent-free in my head. I'm obsessed. I love it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what that says about me. But she is sitting on Nate's lap in the very back of an Uber. They have the radio blasting, and his hands wander all the way up her dress, and he gets her off in the back of an Uber. And you can tell this is so college, because basically right as she finishes, somebody turns the music down and somebody screams, "Anybody want McDonald's?" How cliche college drunk is that? I loved that scene, let me tell you. Just something about it lives rent-free in my head. It will never go away. Thank you, Hannah Grace, for that. So they actually go back to the guy's place, and Lola's teasing Stas like, okay, you totally had, you know, fun times in the back of that Uber. We could so tell something happened. So Stas decides she's going to spend the night with Nate. Not like spend the night, but just, you know, crash in his place on his big bed. So she goes to go key in the key to get into his room with him standing right there, and accidentally uses Ryan's code instead, which makes Nate so jealous, especially after what just happened. But they go into Nate's room and they talk about like kind of what's happened with Robbie, what the whole situationship is. Oh no, Ryan. So again, this is the thing with the names. We've got a Ryan, we've got a Robbie, we've got a Russ, we've got a Sasha along with a Stas. Hannah did not make it easy to remember some of these names. But anyway, Stas and Nate are talking about Ryan and what's happened between Ryan and Stas, and even though it turns out that Ryan is supposedly Stas's best friend, there's nothing physically going on between them right now, or at least not anymore, because Ryan is now dating Liv. So Stas tries to flirt and tries to get Nathan to do a repeat of what they did in the Uber, but he turns her down. He says she is too drunk, this is not right, this is not the time, not the place, just not tonight. So they crawl into bed and cuddle and sleep. So when Nate wakes up alone the next morning, he's a little upset, so he texts her about it, and it turns out that she saved her number in his phone as Uber Slut. Like, talk about self-deprecating, Stas. No, you're fine. So when Nate goes downstairs, Lola's already downstairs, and he tells her, like, look, I didn't let Stas go home drunk. She's sleeping everything off in Henry's room, which, again, kind of annoys Nate. Nate actually knows the code, so he enters the code and goes directly into Henry's room, but Henry, being the adorable, loving puppy dog that he is, has a blow-up mattress that he's been sleeping on. So Stas has been sleeping on his bed. He's been sleeping on a blow-up mattress. We love Henry. So what do you know? Stas and Nate actually have a mature conversation. Who knew Stas was capable of that? And she admits to the fact that she just feels bad because she's not used to being rejected. She's never really been rejected before, and it doesn't bode well for her when that happens. So she just felt a little bit defensive and a little overwhelmed. So fast forward to later where the guys are in the hockey rink. They're practicing, and their practice goes into overtime, but Stas needs to practice, so she doesn't care. She puts her skates on and starts figure skating around all these massive hockey players, which freaks Nate out. He thinks that she's going to get herself hurt again. So he rushes over, picks her up, like throws her caveman style over his shoulder, and walks her off the rink until all the other guys are off the field. He texts her that night asking where she is, and she says if he can find her by midnight, she'll give him oral. So while Nate's running around trying to find her, it turns out that Stas convinced JJ, one of the roommates, to throw a party at Nate's place. So Stas has actually been in Nate's house pretty much the entire night while he's been going all over the city trying to find her. And they're kind of funny because Stas and JJ almost formed this bond over annoying Nate, which the two of them together is hilarious. So when Nate actually realizes where she is, it is past midnight, he's lost the bet, lost the game, but he goes back home anyway, and of course this is a college party, it's not just them, so it turns out that his former crush Summer was there. So Nate takes Summer up to his room, which makes Stas incredibly jealous. So she goes up to confront him, and it turns out Summer just needed to use the bathroom. So the two of them are kind of arguing a little bit, and then there's a little bit of flirting, and then the clothes come off, and then it is the first full-blown spicy scene of the two of them together. With consent, with condom use, gotta love it. Also, kudos to Nate for knowing to put a pillow under her hips. Pro move from some guy in his 20s. That is a pro move at that age. So after their little encounter, Nate goes into Henry's room because it turns out that Henry has a guest basket for anybody who stays over, guys and girls. He just has this entire little setup. So Nate goes in and basically grabs a little shower pack for Stas to use now that she's spending the night. I told you, we love Henry. He's such a puppy. He's amazing. Just, Henry is the perfect cinnamon roll boyfriend. But as he goes in there, it turns out that Henry had a girl on the bed already, and Nate sort of accidentally cockblocks Henry, which Henry gets incredibly angry about. In fact, he threatens to take Stas as payback, and I think Nate knows that Henry could do it if he wanted to. Something about Henry, he just has that charm. He has that way with women. We've seen it at the bar where he was flirting with a couple women. Something about him, he could probably steal Stas so easily if he wanted to, and Nate knows it, so now he's scared. So the next day, Stas wakes up with hickeys all over, and she gives Nate a hard time because, like, look, I teach kids on Saturdays. I don't need them seeing hickeys. This is not what their teachers should walk in looking like. So Nate kind of apologizes about it and drops Stas off at the hockey rink and asks when he can see her again. And this is where Nate learns about her infamous planner. She actually pulls it out and starts trying to find a time where he can see her. She actually says she's busy for the next few days and kind of blows him off from there, but he texts her during her break and offers to pick her up from work. Now she reluctantly agrees, and then on the drive back he starts teasing her about her planner. Stas gets really defensive about it, and this is where we learn that Stas was adopted. When she was younger, her parents signed her up for loads of extracurriculars, and that was where she learned that she's actually a talented skater. Now, her parents are so wonderful and loving and supportive, and they were when she was growing up too, but she was always worried that because she was adopted, she had to earn their love. She had to be the best. She needed to earn what her parents gave her. So when she was younger, she went to a therapist, and the therapist was the one that actually suggested that she start this planner to sort of give her a feeling of control over her life, over her extracurriculars, and she's been using a planner ever since. So once Nate drops her off, Aaron sees that Stas is covered in hickeys, and Aaron is pissed. He threatens to stop skating with Stas entirely if she doesn't knock off whatever it is she's doing with Nate. Which is funny because he didn't care too much about when she was hooking up with Ryan, but now he's concerned about her hooking up with Nate. So Nate's pretty pissed off at how Aaron's been treating Stas, and Stas is kind of getting fed up with it too. So they're both talking about Halloween costumes, what they should be doing. Initially, she was supposed to go shopping for costumes with Aaron and Lola, and Nate says, you know what, forget it, let's just order costumes online, and let's go over to your place and you can pick up some stuff so that way you can stay with me for a little while and take a break from Aaron, which, swoon, love it. In order to stay away from Aaron for a little while, Nate suggests that the two of them play house for a little bit. And while they're chatting, Stas kind of just throws out there that Nate's captain title basically gives him the chance to sleep with half the girls on campus. Like, they throw themselves at hockey players. And he says he basically has already, but there's a difference between hooking up with somebody and liking somebody. Which, okay, we get it, but cringe. So Stas actually stops home for a little while. Lola is like rifling through her closet to try to find something for a Halloween costume, and Aaron is still being the pitty, immature person that he is and ignoring Stas. Now at this point, the entire hockey team is convinced that Aaron is in love with Stas and just isn't admitting it, which I think everybody but Stas gets that feeling. So for Halloween, they all go to the club, and the guys are hilarious. All of them dress as minions from Despicable Me, except Nate, who dresses as Gru, and they're hilarious. But Stas walks in, and Nate is pissed because Stas is wearing JJ's jersey, his hockey jersey. Nate loses it. He hoists her up over his shoulder, marches off to the bathroom with her still hung over his shoulder, and demands that she take it off. So she does, and it turns out that she was just joking around. She actually had the college's cheerleading uniform under it the whole time. She's basically just doing it to get under his skin anyway. And Nate takes it a step further, and there's one heck of a spicy scene up against the wall in that bathroom. Like, I never thought of a bathroom as being a good place, but they made it work. So once they return to the booth after their little tete-a-tete in the bathroom, Aaron enters, and Aaron comes over with his arm in a sling, because it turns out that Aaron got hurt. And Aaron's saying that he got hurt because of Nate. Now, of course, the whole team jumps in and says they did nothing, Nate did nothing, they don't even know what Aaron's talking about. Like, Stas is stuck. She has no idea what in the world to think. She basically can't compute what's happening, but she's been friends with Aaron for years. So she doesn't necessarily jump to his defense, but she does believe him, kind of. Now, girl dad hockey coach, Coach Faulkner, calls the entire hockey team in for a meeting. He is pissed. Aaron gives this icky story about Nate basically beating him up, which so doesn't seem like Nate, but the entire hockey team's like, no, Nate wouldn't do that, that isn't Nate. And Aaron's dad, being Rich McGee, who has this big fancy loft that the three of them live in with a fancy doorman, is threatening to pull some funding to the college if something isn't done about what happened to his son. So Nate steps up, is the captain that he is, and lies and says he did it, even though everybody knows he didn't do it. So Coach Faulkner says, okay, well then you can't skate until Aaron is cleared and can skate again too. So Nate is basically suspended from practice until Aaron is recovered enough to go back to figure skating. So Nate decides to go over and see Stas, and he starts getting this massive headache, like a major migraine. He goes over there, walks right past Aaron to Stas, and Stas is pissed. She's like, you lied to me. You did this to Aaron. Why didn't you tell me? How could you do something like that? Ryan's also in the apartment with her, and Nate's headache gets so bad that he passes out. So then it jumps to Stas being on a video call with her therapist talking about her parents. And then starts talking about Aaron, and it seems like Aaron's healed up enough that they'll be able to go to competition tomorrow. Which, if you remember, this is their last big competition before nationals. They're talking to her therapist. She's trying to defend Aaron a little bit. She says that Aaron grew up with really manipulative parents. That's the only way he knows how to get what he wants, is to be kind of manipulative. And she's almost defending his behavior. Now, this is where we learn that she hasn't talked to Nate in like 2 weeks. But once he got sick, she actually called up a couple of the hockey players. A couple of them came over and took Nate away, I guess, to the hospital. And that's when they told her what Nate did for the team. And Stas is like, I don't know who to believe. Like, you have this entire team saying he didn't do it. But then you have Aaron, who I've known for years, saying he did do it. But I also know that Aaron's kind of manipulative. So she doesn't quite know who to believe. So now that Aaron's been cleared to play again, Nate is back on the team. And he really does want to talk to Stas. But he's concerned that she doesn't want to see him. So the first hockey game back, they end up winning the game. So he buys a couple bottles of Jaeger for the whole team to celebrate. He goes back home, and it turns out that the coach is looking for him. Great. So he goes to the coach, talks to the coach, and says, Aaron isn't skating right now. Aaron hurt himself again, and while he was skating a competition, he dropped Stas. So Nate's like, okay, no more of this, like, not talking to each other thing. He goes over there to see if Stas is okay. And Stas is an absolute mess after what happened. So she tells him that Aaron had dropped her. His wrist gave out because his wrist was apparently still injured. She ended up falling, and they barely scraped through and qualified. She finished the routine on her own, and they just got into nationals by, like, the skin of their teeth. So it turns out that Aaron is not able to skate for the next 8 weeks, which also means Nate is suspended from the team again for another 8 weeks. So Stas goes out on her own to a bar to go have a few drinks. She's tired, she's fed up, she's stressed, she doesn't know what to do. And while she's there, she actually runs into Russ, the one who was doing a little something with somebody from one of the other colleges, whose boyfriend went to another college, and is the entire reason the ice hockey rink got sabotaged. So while she's talking to Russ, they end up going to a coffee shop to chat, and it turns out that Russ and Stas actually have a lot in common. They're not used to being trust fund kids like Aaron and Nate and Lola and everybody else that they're living with. So the two of them kind of bond over having to struggle a little bit more than everybody else around them. So Stas basically vents everything to Russ, and Russ is like, look, Nate would want to talk to you, go talk to him. So Stas and Nate decide to talk, and it turns out that Stas is like, no, I need to put the romance on the back burner. I need to focus on skating right now. So Nate offers to be her skating partner for the next few weeks while Aaron is in recovery and Nate is not allowed on the hockey team. So they go shopping. They pick up leggings for him to skate in, which apparently he feels very, very well. So once they're done shopping, Nate wants to go get food, and Stas is like, well, no, I have to actually stick with the diet plan that I'm on. And Nate's like, okay, well, let me look at the diet plan. And it turns out it's almost entirely vegetables. There's not really a lot of protein, definitely not a lot of carbs for energy. And he's like, who the hell gave you this plan? It's terrible. And she's like, oh, Aaron made it up for me. And Nate's like, look, you're under eating. Like, sports medicine, sports nutrition is his major. He knows all about this stuff. And he's like, you're dramatically under eating what you should be. So he says he's going to create a plan for her, and she's a little bit worried about going off for old plans. So he's like, you know what? We'll put Aaron's plan up against my plan, and we'll let your coach decide what's going to be better for you. Nate's pretty pissed. He's like, this is another tactic that Aaron is using to control you. And she's like, well, no, my weight really is a problem. He's having trouble lifting me. And Nate is like, look, if Aaron can't lift you, Aaron needs to hit the gym. That's not on you, babe. And Nate's picking up the basics pretty well. So they go home, or Stas goes back to her place rather, and Aaron is there. So he's pissed off that she's actually found somebody to skate with for now, even though he's not like a professional. And she's like, look, I know what you've been doing with the meal plan. What the hell did you think you were doing? And she ends up calling Nate in tears, asking to stay with him. So Stas is now staying with a bunch of hockey players, and one of the things that she's actually doing to kind of recover from her eating disorder is she's learning to cook. Her and JJ are actually bonding a lot over cooking. At this point, she's lived with Nate for a few weeks, and even though they're sleeping in the same bed, they put all that romance stuff aside. They actually have a wall of pillows in between them at night. But now that she's staying with them, she's cooking her own meals. Coach actually approved Nate's food plan, no surprise there. So all the guys are also teaching Stas how to cook, especially JJ. So while she's staying there, Nate's sister, Sasha, actually shows up. She says she wants to quit skiing. Now Nate knows it's kind of a little bit of a cry for their dad's attention. Their dad has a really bad habit of putting too much attention on Nate and pretty much ignoring Sasha. So Nate knows that she isn't really serious about wanting to quit skiing. She's just sort of threatening it to get their dad to listen to her. And this is where Nate's dad calls up Nate and is like, look, I'm going to be in California in 2 weeks. If you want to see me, I'll be around. Now, Nate and Stas have been skating for a couple of weeks now, but Stas is still afraid of lifts after what happened before. Aaron actually shows up at their practice session and asks to talk with Stas. And of course, Nate's not happy about it, but there's nothing he's going to do. If Stas wants to talk to Aaron, obviously she can talk to Aaron. Aaron tells her, yet again shaming her, like he's pissed at Stas for moving in with Nate, who caused the injury in the first place. Now she's skating with the guy who caused him to be injured. Like, Aaron does not take accountability for anything. Ever. Ever. Well, it's right before finals. The hockey team throws a big party and Nate gets absolutely piss drunk, to the point that Stas gets him into bed and he passes out. Stas goes back downstairs to the party and starts talking to Lola, and it turns out that apparently Aaron is dating this girl Kitty, who it turns out Kitty is the person that Nate slept with at the very beginning, where he wakes up and has no idea who she is at first. So now that chick is dating Aaron. It's a little confusing. So drunk Nate, in the middle of a party, comes back downstairs in his boxers to look for Stas, grabs her and basically flings her over his shoulder and goes back upstairs with her. He says, enough of this. I want to cuddle. He knocks all the pillows off the bed and cuddles with Stas for the night. So of course, it being, the 2020s, allegedly when this takes place, people have phones that take pictures, and people were taking pictures of Nate in his boxers, to the point that people on campus have managed to turn him into a meme. This is where Sasha actually texts Nate to thank him for getting in touch with their dad, because their dad actually said, okay, you know what? Clearly, Sasha needs a little bit of a break. Let's go on holiday. So he actually took her on holiday. Nate did not go with them. So while Stas is downstairs making everybody breakfast, they're all playing this game of sort of like Would You Rather. And Henry throws in a random comment about how it seems like Stas is in love with Nate. Henry, oh, the awkward puppy dog Henry. We love him, but oof. So nobody says anything. They all kind of ignore Henry's little comment, but Nate notices Stas blush on this. And he's like, you know what? Now's a good time for me to see you in a bikini. So to help her get over her fear of falling in the ice, he suggests that they go to the school's pool and basically practice lifts there. So she will be safe, she will be protected. And he's like, I've got enough strength to hold you up with like one arm. You'll be totally fine with me. I'm not weak like Aaron, which gotta love that. But they go to the pool to practice lifts and get Stas comfortable before nationals. Now it's after finals, exams are over, and Stas is debating on whether or not she should go home to see her parents over the holidays. Now Nate actually offers for her to come with him to Colorado to his family's place because his family will be on holiday, so it'll be just the two of them in this cozy little mansion up in Colorado in the snow. So while they're talking about their plans to go to Colorado, Stas asks him what he wants for Christmas, which of course turns into yet another spicy scene. And next thing we know, Nate is at the mall with Henry and JJ buying Stas's Christmas present. He's actually buying her pajamas for Christmas, which is really sweet, but it turns out the girl at the checkout counter is his old crush. Remember the one who he let use the bathroom and Stas thought the two of them were hooking up? Yeah, she's the one that's checking them out. So the hockey team's throwing a big Christmas party, and Stas, along with some other people, are playing Drunk Twister. So they actually see each other from across the room, and Nate and Stas start making their way over to each other, and who interrupts but Ryan, best friend / old hookup buddy, gives Stas a big hug which stops Nate in his tracks. And this is where we find out that Ryan and Liv are no longer a thing. So Ryan is back on the market, and that makes Nate a little uncomfortable that he is hugging Stas in that kind of way. So Nate's like, screw it. They go out to the outdoor fire pit, and Stas is cuddling up, getting all cozy, and after a little while there's a big commotion out front. So it turns out that Stas fell asleep by the fire. There are a bunch of fights going on. Henry's in a fight. Nate is fighting with Aaron at this party. It's an absolute mess. So JJ ends up calling it quits. Party's off, everybody go home. And Stas was trying to figure out, okay, what the hell happened that made Nate and Aaron fight that got Henry involved in this, like little puppy dog Henry? She starts treating Nate for injuries that he got. And Nate's like, Aaron was talking shit about you, so I jumped in. And Stas is like, look, you don't need to do that for me. You don't need to defend my honor. And Henry was like, well, I was the one that started it. So it's the next day. Stas and Nate wake up, and spicy scene in the shower, and they start having that, well, what are we labeling this kind of conversation, which, okay, you two have been flirting and going back and forth for the entire semester, but sure, let's now talk about labels. So they decide that they're definitely a thing, and Stas says, like, I want to talk to Henry and figure out what the hell happened last night with Aaron. What did he say that got Henry so pissed off? So this is where Henry says, Tim heard Aaron say your parents are broke, so you're latching on to guys going pro. He called you a slut and said you'd always be one, and you're trying the same thing with Nate. He goes on to say, Aaron said you would trap Nate with a baby, you didn't have the talent to go all the way in skating, and it would give you an excuse without having to admit that you're not good enough. Damn, Aaron! Okay, tell us how you really feel about your friend from the last 3 years. So of course, Stas is devastated. Nate calms her down. Obviously, he knows that none of that's true. So now Stas and Nate have started to refer to each other as girlfriend and boyfriend. Finally. And they decided that they were going to go to Stas's parents' house over Christmas. And here we have Mr. and Mrs. Allen, who are the loveliest couple you could ever imagine. They're basically dream parents. Her mom was worried that she wouldn't be able to find time with them with her busy schedule, but she's so glad that Stas came home for a little while. Like, they're so supportive of Stas. They're supportive of pretty much everything she does. They even went and bought Christmas onesies for her and Nate for Christmas. We love the Allens. They actually go out to dinner, and it turns out that the waiter is James, Stas's old skating partner / ex-boyfriend. Everyone seems so uncomfortable when he walks over, but he just acts like basically a professional waiter. Oh, hi, nice to see you. Okay, let me take your order, and try to make this as unawkward as possible. And even more, Stas's parents adore Nate. Like, her dad is so excited to watch Nate's hockey games. Nate's dad never cared about hockey. Nate's dad hated hockey. But Mr. Allen is like the dad Nate never had. So while they're there, Stas tells her mom what Aaron had said about her, and Stas is like, look, if we stop to skate together, we'll skate together, but we are no longer friends with Aaron. After they spend some time with her parents, they go up to Nate's parents' house in Colorado. Well, his family house in Colorado that is currently empty because Mr. Hawkins and his sister Sasha are both away on holiday. And while they're there, Stas is basically admitting to herself that she's falling for Nate. She's definitely got the hots for him. She has feelings for Nate. This is where we find out that Nate's dad owns a ski resort. Not just any ski resort, but the ski resort where Robbie was hurt. So while Nate's showing her around, she also shows her this big lake that's out there, and they go around the lake, certain parts of the lake, they go around the snow, basically just enjoy the scenery and the vibes of a winter in Colorado. Stas asks what is going on between Nate and his dad. Why does he hate his dad so much? So this is where we learn that Nate's dad had cheated on his dying mother with a 25-year-old. His mom died of a blood disorder, and Mr. Hawkins is running around with some 25-year-old from the ski resort. So Nate has never forgiven him for doing that to their mom right before she passed away. And on top of that, when Robbie was injured, his dad did nothing for as long as possible until Robbie's lawyers got involved. Like, Robbie's family knew the Hawkins family for a long time, and it wasn't until they threatened with a lawsuit that their dad even did anything, even though Robbie was completely paralyzed from the legs down on his ski resort. Now, Nate says his dad did feel a little bit guilty, which is why they bought the house right by campus and converted the garage into an entire little apartment for Robbie for accommodation. So now that we know that, it's the next morning. Nate is downstairs going to go make breakfast, and Stas is already outside, and she goes and sees a deer across the lake. So she starts walking across the frozen lake and falls through the ice. So Nate sees what happens and rushes outside and pulls her out of the lake. So he brings her inside, strips all the wet clothes off of her, puts her in a warm shower, and this is where he has that little I love you moment. The two of them spend Christmas morning in the hospital where she's recovering from hypothermia. And when she's cleared to go, they go back to his dad's place. They exchange Christmas presents. He actually bought her an iPad so she could upgrade to a digital planner so she wouldn't have to keep carrying a physical one everywhere. And that morning she's in his hockey jersey this time. And the two of them start fooling around on Christmas morning. They've brought out some stuff from the fridge, and lo and behold, somebody comes home, and Sasha is there. Just Sasha. It turns out that their dad came back with Sasha too, so the two of them rush to get changed, and then by the time the dad actually walks in, he's like, oh, okay, I see that you guys are here. We're going to go have lunch. So while they're together, Stas and Sasha are talking, and the two of them become like super, super fast friends. They get along well. And then when they go out to lunch, ooh, things get awkward, because remember how James was the waiter there? It turns out that Nate slept with this waitress a long time ago. So that made things awkward. And Nate doesn't really address the waitress, like the elephant in the room, until the waitress comes back and points out like, hey, my girlfriend asked for no ice in her drink. Can you go get her the drink that she ordered? And then the waitress just scurries off. And just to take things a little bit further, Mr. Hawkins, this restaurant's on his property, threatens the waitress if he doesn't basically up her game and give Stas exactly what she ordered, threatens to have the waitress fired. Okay. Power move? Not loving it though. And it seems like things start to go okay until everybody orders, and Sasha says that she wants to have a burger with fries, and the dad chips in and says no, she's going to have a salad, which is incredibly triggering for Stas, who is recovering from an eating disorder herself. So Stas sticks up for Sasha in this, which immediately puts off Mr. Hawkins. Basically he does not like her anymore, but none of us like Mr. Hawkins. He's a terrible human being. So after this, the two of them pack up to go back to college, and Nate runs into his dad while they're packing everything up. And this is where his dad points out, oh, I actually like Stas. She reminds me a lot of your mother. Not the best thing to say. It turns out that Nate's mom, the first time she met his grandfather, called out the grandfather for being a misogynist. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it, Mr. Hawkins? So Nate digs at his dad. Was like, well, if you loved mom so much, why did you cheat on her? And like, Nate sees how much his dad has beaten himself up over what he's done, how much he regrets what he did, but ultimately it doesn't change the fact that he did really hurt his mom right before she passed away. So Stas and Nate go back to the house and they tell everybody what happened, and Henry is so incredibly upset, like visibly shaking at the thought of Stas almost dying in the lake. So the two of them go in their room and they start asking each other, okay, well, we've only got a semester left. What do we do after graduation? Because Nate's going to Vancouver to play for the NHL. And Stas says next year she wants to move back in with Lola and Aaron. She doesn't want to live with the hockey guys without Nate there. Of course, this really upsets Nate after everything that Aaron has said and done to her. But Stas is like, look, I'm not friends with Aaron anymore, but he is going to still be my skating partner. Now at this point, once the semester starts, Aaron is cleared to skate again and Nate can go back to skating hockey. So later on, Stas visits Henry, who is still really, really upset about learning about what happened in the lake. He was actually looking at stats about people falling into frozen lakes and dying. And also injuries for figure skaters. How many figure skaters get these severe life-altering injuries or even die from figure skating? So Stas is like, look, I will make you a deal. If you stop looking at these stats, I will stop skating around on frozen lakes. And he's like, okay, deal. Stas and Aaron are going to start skating again, and they meet up with Brady to kind of clear the air, get a bit of a fresh start. Now, Aaron starts throwing out these weak excuses one after the other, but he never just apologizes for what he said or did to Stas. Though Stas calls him out on it and tells Coach Brady everything that the guys told her that Aaron said about her. Stas basically asks, why do you hate me? We've been friends for years. Why do you suddenly hate me? And poor Aaron starts going on about, oh, well, my dad cheated again. And this time he got the girl pregnant and he needed support, and Stas was too busy with the hockey team to be there to support him. Like, he plays on Brady's sympathy so much, it just grates on your skin. And of course Brady's like, well, why don't you two go to like a sort of couples counselor, but not for couples, but for like sports partners. Yeah, great. So Aaron's like, yeah, of course, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for anything in order for us to skate together again. No problem, I'll find somebody. So of course he finds the therapist for them to go see, because he's the one paying for it. So Stas is pissed off. She gets home and Nate actually brought her flowers because he kind of felt bad about how he left things. But she says, look, thanks, but I need my space. I'm gonna go drinking with Lola. I need a break. So she goes out drinking with Lola. They get absolutely plastered. The two of them end up in Robbie's room and Stas gets sick. So Lola texts Nate and Nate comes down and basically takes care of her while she's feeling awful. So the two of them get over the little fight, the little spat that they had. Now, finally into spring semester and the hockey rink has been repaired. They no longer need to share hockey rinks, yay. But Stas has also started couples therapy with Aaron, which is going so well. It's actually really upsetting because of course the therapist that he finds always manages to support Aaron and tells Stas just how wrong she is. So now that nationals are coming up, hockey season's picking up, both Stas and Nate are incredibly busy. But Stas finds time to go watch her first hockey game. So once they get back home, they're excited and whatnot, and Nate asks Stas how her day's been, how things are going with her, and she's like, ugh, I had a therapy appointment this morning with Aaron, and the therapist thinks that I should move back in with him because that'll be better for us as partners. But Stas is like, I know exactly what this psychologist is doing. I'm not falling for it. I don't believe it. So Stas and Lo are talking to each other, and Stas is like, look, I really don't want to live with Aaron next year. And Lo's like, you know what? I could use a bit of a fresh start too. Let's find our own place away from Aaron, even though it's not going to be in any place nearly as nice. Let's just get away from Aaron next year. So Stas and Aaron are still practicing. They're still going to be partners. Aaron is making all these huffing noises every single time he has to lift her up. And Stas calls him out on it. She's like, you go to the gym and you lift 100 pounds more than what I even weigh. So why are you acting like picking me up is like the hardest thing ever? So he complains like, look, you gained 12 pounds since the last time we were skating together. To me, that's a lot. So she calls him off. She's like, you know what? We're done practice for today. I'm finished with this. Nate's been moping around because they haven't quite resolved the fight between them. He doesn't like that Stas is still having to deal with Aaron. And all the guys kind of tell him, okay, pull your head in and put yourself in Stas's shoes. She doesn't want to be around Aaron. She's doing this to set herself up for her future. Like, Nate's a bit of a trust fund brat. Stas grew up from a really hardworking family who doesn't have that kind of money. So Nate's not really putting himself in Stas's shoes when it comes to setting herself up. She doesn't have a trust fund to fall back on like he does. So Nate takes her out on a date to kind of smooth things over and talk things through. And Stas is like, okay, thank you. Now the next day is nationals competition, so she's like, you know what, I think it's best for us to like spend the night apart, give me a chance to prep and just mentally be there for the competition tomorrow because this is huge. But when she's alone, she's like, oh well, my shirt doesn't smell like Nate. It's like all these little excuses, so she calls him and he comes over, which of course leads to a spicy scene. Now Stas wakes up so incredibly nervous that she actually gets sick, and Nate's like, birth control. You're on that, right? She's like, yeah, I just get sick before competitions. This always happens. She's like, it's definitely not morning sickness. I take pills. We're fine. Not that. So it turns out that the boys have a hockey game the same time that Stas has a competition. And there's actually 2 rounds that they have to skate for her competition. So the boys figure, okay, well, once we finish our game, we can go over there and surprise her for the second round. So Nate's talking with the captain of the other team and kind of just casually mentions, oh yeah, I haven't been able to skate for a little while. This thing happened with Aaron and he hurt his wrist. And the captain's like, wait a minute, Aaron, I know that guy. I know how he hurt himself. It turns out that Aaron was playing football with a bunch of guys over at UCLA, and that's how he hurt his wrist. Not because of Nate. No, a bunch of hockey players did hurt his wrist because he was playing football with them. So Nate is furious. So he goes over to the rink where the competition's happening. They just finish up their first round competition, and Nate sees Aaron at the end of the routine kiss Stas. Oh, Stas is not having it. She's trying to push him off, but she doesn't really have the strength to push him off. Like, the cameras are going off. They're going crazy, and they skate off the rink. Now, she's ready to leave. She's fuming. She's furious. And the coach and Aaron are trying to coax back, like, no, wait, you need to see what the scores are. You need to check your scores first. Don't just leave yet. But Nate comes in and starts comforting Stas and punches Aaron in the face. So as they're waiting for the scores, you got Aaron nursing a black eye. Stas looks absolutely furious. Coach Brady has no idea what the hell they even do. And they get their scores. And it turns out they actually placed first. And this is where Stas says, you know what? Forget this. I'm going to be a solo skater. I'm not doing partner skating anymore. I'm going to skate on my own. Nate drives Stas back home, and Stas's parents saw the whole thing on TV, so they're calling Stas to see if she's okay, to see what happened. And then Stas's dad actually calls Nate. He's like, look, is my daughter okay? And Nate's like, yeah, but she's fine, but she's not going to be skating with Aaron ever again. So they go back to the apartment and see the entire hockey team moving Lola and Stas's stuff out to go live with the hockey team. And Lola says, look, you and me, we're staying with the guys until we find our own place. You're not staying with Aaron ever again. So skip to 3 months later, towards the end of the semester. The guys won their big hockey tournament. And Stas's dad, sweetheart that he is, tells Nate that he's so proud of him, that he's been watching the games on TV, that he's really excited to tell everybody that he knows somebody who's on the team. And Nate actually has a meeting with the college sports director. And it turns out that an anonymous student told them exactly what happened with Aaron and how Aaron actually got hurt. Of course, the anonymous student was Stas, but the director doesn't know that. And Aaron has decided to transfer to UCLA next year. So Nate also has a visit with his coach to discuss who's going to take over as captain next year, and Nate nominates Henry, who will be a senior next year. And of course, they put in an epilogue where it's 2 years later, and it turns out that Stas is pregnant. She's actually pregnant with a girl, so it turns out right before her big Olympic competition, she got incredibly nervous and accidentally threw up her birth control pill, which threw everything off and is how she ended up getting pregnant after winning a gold medal at the Olympics, which of course is right around the same time that Nate's team in Vancouver won the Stanley Cup. Also, I love that they actually got a golden retriever. I mean, you have Nate, who's the biggest golden retriever in a book, and they bought an actual golden retriever. I love it. So the two of them decide to go out to dinner for a little while before the baby's born, and Nate proposes on the beach, which is an incredibly cute scene. I love the little epilogue scene. Between the two of them, it was very sweet. It was a great way to wrap up the book. So if you're a hockey fan, this is very, very late on the hockey. There is not that much hockey to really understand. Other than captain, you don't hear anything about positions and stuff like that on the team. There's no real games or anything that they go through. It is very light on the hockey element. So if you're wanting to read this for the hockey part, you might be a little bit disappointed. But if you're somebody like me who isn't really into that sport so much, or at least you don't know too much about it, you'll be comfortable reading this because there's no real heavy terminology that's thrown around. It's not like you're expected to know hockey before you actually read this. Like I said, there's been some spice that comes up in this over and over again. This is a spicy book, you guys. This is an 18 and older for a mature audience kind of book. Even though the cover does not look like it at all, it is definitely meant for a more mature audience, and that is the way Hannah Grace seems to write. I haven't read her other two books yet, but it seems like Wildfire and Daydream are right along those lines as well when it comes to spice, but they're not quite as talked about and not quite as picked up, partly because from what I've heard, the other two sort of lack this hockey element that the first one has. But overall, I can see why BookTok jumped on it. It's surprising how long this book is for it being a debut, because this is Hannah Grace's debut, and most debuts tend to be more on the smaller length word count, typically within the 80 to 90,000-ish range. Hers blew up at over 100,000 words. So it is quite a hefty book. It is a little bit of a long book, and it does get a little bit repetitious after a while. But the banter in it is absolutely stellar. I did appreciate the characterization. I feel like there were a couple too many like minor side characters that we were supposed to be able to track and keep mind of. Like you had Kitty, and then you had Summer, and then you had James, the ex-skating partner, like all these little names and stuff that you were supposed to remember. So it did feel like a very big cast of characters that could have been a little bit smaller. But overall, it's a decent story. It's a good story. I can see why it was so popular on BookTok. So if you want to pick it up, I will have the link down below for you guys on Amazon if you want to go check it out. I think that Hannah Grace has a very, very interesting imagination, especially when it comes to spice. So that's it for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please, please, please hit the like and subscribe button. It really, really does help support this channel more than you guys know. I would love to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, if that's even possible. But I so greatly appreciate the support, you guys, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!